Okay, well, happy to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Senator Tim Sheldon. I live in the district. I was born in Shelton, and my grandparents came from Sweden on my mom's side to work in the woods, basically. And so we have a tree farm in Potlatch, and we sell gravel, cut timber, sell timber, and oysters. So I've been in the legislature quite a while. I was first a port commissioner back in 1986 with the Port of Hoodsport. And then I ran for the House of Representatives. It was a crowded field, open seat, and I won in 1990. So I served 7 years in the House of Representatives. During that time, I finished my 6 years with the Port Commission as well. I was appointed and then ran once as a PUD commissioner, so I've had 3 years experience with PUD 1 in Mason County. And also during my Senate career, I was a county commissioner at the same time. A lot of work, but I enjoyed it, and I think it was very helpful to have a local elected official in the legislature to talk about some of the difficulties, especially that our counties are having. So I've had a long career, and to answer your question, I'd like to serve 4 more years. I enjoy public service. That's what I've done all my life, and I think I'm pretty good at it. I'm the longest serving member of the legislature, 147 members. I don't know how I ever got to be that, but time goes on. And so I have the most seniority in the Senate as well. So experience matters in Olympia, and I've been able to do some things that others have not been able to do because of seniority. I'll give you an example. I'm on the Transportation Committee, longest serving member. I'm also on one of 4 members who write the transportation budget. So we do that in the evenings and meet with the staff, go through all the issues, and then present it to the committee, and then it goes on to the floor and to the other house and to the governor. But being in that position, I can insert things in the budget that are very helpful for my district, and I think that's very useful. So I would like to continue doing that for 4 more years, and I think I bring a little different perspective to Olympia. I'm a Democrat, but I'm not endorsed by the Democrats. I've run and been elected 10 times to the legislature as a Democrat. But there are very few rural Democrats left in Olympia, and the 35th district is the most rural legislative district in the state. Now, you think that would be in Okanagan County or someplace, but we only have a portion of Bremerton and all of Shelton as incorporated cities within the district. So the rest is rural countryside, and that makes for a very different constituent base.
Do you plan to continue caucusing with the Republicans and with the majority?
Well, it depends if they want to caucus with me sometime. I don't believe that one political party has a monopoly on all the good ideas in Olympia. And I've caucused with the Democrats for, let's see, 23 years, and with the Republicans for 5-6 years. So
what determines what helps you make that decision where you're going to stay?
What is in it for my district? Now, with the Democrats, they're primarily urban dwellers. And I'll give you an example: school funding. So all the time I sat with the Democrats in the House and the Senate, as the budgets increased, the proportion spent on schools went down. So if we spent $20 million or $20 billion in a budget, that percentage maybe would have been 48% for schools. The next year, if we had $25 billion, again, the percentage always went down. But the promises were made to schools and to teachers and to educators that we were going to improve schools. And in 2013, 2 other Democrats and I sided with the Republicans to write the budget, and it started to increase funding for schools. We also lowered tuition. We were the only state in the country that lowered tuition. And so to answer your question, what determines where I'm going to be is who's with me, who's going to work with my district. And I think that's very important.
Did you ever change parties?
No. No, I'm a Democrat. When I grew up, John Kennedy was my idol. I enjoyed politics. That was what I am. Because I don't belong to that Democratic club, you know, all the other Democrats will endorse my opponent in the election. But it's interesting that when they pass a bill in the House of Representatives, they'll come to me in the Senate and ask for my help to pass their bill, which I'm happy to do. But today in the political world in Washington, D.C., and even more in Washington State, it's party against party. And I really don't like that. So I'll work with everybody and anybody.
You said the funding piece, especially the education, was what made you change where you were sitting.
Yeah.
Where do you still see eye to eye with the Democratic Party, and is there anywhere where you differ with them?
Oh, sure. I work very closely with all the members, and especially the Democrats. For example, this year, people say, "Well, what did you ever vote for?" The bill to ban conversion therapy. Conversion therapy. Yeah. I voted for that. I voted for the voting rights bill that the majority party sponsored this year. I think that was a good thing for local governments and try to give everybody an opportunity for elected office. So I worked very hard with Senator Rolfes on the bill that expanded broadband here in Kitsap County. I'm on the telecommunication, or the Energy Environment Telecommunications Committee, so I worked very closely. I worked very closely with Reuben Carlisle, who's now the chair of that committee. He's a Seattle legislator. I always tell him that his district and my district are adjacent to each other. We're just separated by a Puget Sound. So the 35th and the 36th are close. He's a good friend, and we had a bill for rural broadband service to expansion, and we got it to the floor the last night and almost got it passed. So I'm really looking forward to working on those issues with other Democrats.
And where do you see yourself lining up more with Republican priorities?
I think on fiscal issues. The Republicans in the Senate are primarily from rural areas. And you might know, obviously, 700,000 new people to Washington just the last 10 years. So the urban areas are doing well. You go up to Seattle, you can't miss all the tower cranes and the activity and what's going on. But still, the eastern Washington and some of the rural counties are suffering. Some are even losing population. And so they need assistance. And primarily, I again to side with them on keeping taxes low, not spending our reserves, and working on infrastructure. And so all my career I've worked very hard on water projects, road projects, sewer projects, especially because we're lacking in that in the rural areas.
Okay, so speaking of infrastructure and development, you've been in office long enough to see what's happened in Shelton in the logging industry, and I know several times you've come and talked to us, and we always talk about economic development in your district. What do you see happening right now? What is your top priority right now?
Okay, in Shelton, as you mentioned, I was born there, and Simpson Timber Company was 100 years. They had a big mill there. They would cut, if they had everything ran right that day, they could cut up to 1 million board feet a day in that big mill. So they closed a couple years, 2 years ago, and I obtained $500,000 in the operating budget to help the city of Shelton with permitting and work to find a new mill. And Sierra Pacific, they have primarily in California, but they have mills now in Grace Harbor and Chehalis and up in Burlington. They purchased the mill, tore nearly all of it down, and with that assistance that I gave them in the budget, they opened 6 months early. So today they're cutting almost 1 million board feet each shift. This is the most modern mill on the West Coast.
What was the employment change?
With the plywood mill and the sawmill, Simpson had 500 employees. Sierra Pacific did not reopen the plywood mill. They have 300 employees. So it's a huge benefit for the city. They're the largest payer of B&O taxes, largest employer in the city, and you think of all the people that are working in the woods again that are also driving log trucks, 250 loads of logs a day. It's a tremendous amount of wood. And they are great to work with, and I think very thankful that we got them through the permit stage and in business, and it's revitalizing the town, I think. Also some dollars for sewer in Sheldon. If you're through Sheldon right now, it's really torn up because of a sewer project and a big roundabout road project that I got some funding for through the transportation budget as well. So the second part of your question was what?
What's the priority? I mean,
my priority?
Even with some success, there's still definitely a need.
Definitely a need. Well, we have like other counties, we have a drug problem. We have homelessness. We have some other issues that really are helped by economics, by jobs. And I worked for 18 years as the Economic Development Director in Mason County, so I know a lot of businesses. I'll give you an example of some things that I think you might not know about. Have you ever had Olympic Mountain Ice Cream? Okay, wonderful, wonderful company. They're up in the Carl and Bev Black and their family on the Skokomish Valley. Not a premier place to have an ice cream plant, but that's where they started, and that's where they are. So I've helped them a lot with different issues up there, especially the road, the county road, and the river, and the flooding, to try to keep product moving. They produce 400 flavors of ice cream. They have customers in Seattle, all over our area. Anthony's Restaurant, the Weston Hotel. And last week they got a call from the Space Needle, unsolicited. We need your product. They had a new chef who recommended it. They had to hire 5 more people. So things like that kind of make me feel good that product is known around the Northwest and is growing. I've worked with a lot of other companies in Mason and Kitsap County to grow and expand. So there's nothing like a job. In our district, a lot of people leave the district every day to work.
Okay.
And you don't have that time with your family, you don't have time for a little league, you can't spend time with the kids, so being able to live where you work and work where you live is really important to me.
But many of those people come into Bremerton to work at the shipyard.
They do.
What needs to be done to make that commute safer, more reliable, faster? The traffic continues to get
continues to grow. Well, in the Transportation Committee, several years ago, I obtained funding for the Belfair bypass, and I had funding in 2005. We didn't get it built right away, but the funding was not enough. It was about, I think it was 12 or 15. It was $15 million. Well, now we have $66 million to complete that project. We'll start working on it next year. The environmental work has been pretty much completed. It's been renamed. I renamed it in the budget. Instead of the Belfair bypass, it's called the SR3 corridor. Belfair bypass sounds like a medical procedure. It's just, and bypasses are always controversial. North Bend, Yelm, Squim, Belfair, they're always controversial. And I've worked on that a long time, and I want to, in our next session here, make sure it's completed in the full 2.4 miles, because it goes from Kitsap to Mason County, and really almost to Pierce County, when you think about it.
66 million is enough to get 2.4 miles? Yes,
to do the two-lane road, it would be up, as you came here from Bremerton, if you're going down Highway 3 towards Sheldon, at what's the name of the road there? It's not Sand Hill, it's Lake Flora. At Lake Flora would be the interchange, and that would go off to your left. It would parallel the railroad tracks on top of the hill, and come back at Highway 302, past the, near the North Mason High School. So some people would like to shorten it or make changes because they own property in that area and other things. But the length of the bypass needs to be 2.4 miles so it can be safety improvements for the road you just mentioned to me. I was
Lake Flora.
Lake Flora, excuse me. Very dangerous interchange at Lake Flora and dangerous interchange at Highway 302. So spanning that entire length gets you twofer. You get the bypass, you get the traffic out of Belfair, but you also get the improvements at Lake Flora Road and Highway 302. So it's a big project.
What is the key? You know, a couple minutes ago you said keeping people there so they can raise their family,
Yeah.
you know, stay around grandparents, anything like that. But that has been an issue. A lot of young people leave the area, don't stay
Right.
because the job isn't there, whatever
Right.
it is. What do you think is the key to providing that quality of life and all the opportunities you need to be there?
Well, I think this broadband is a big issue. You need it for your kids now to go to school, to make applications to college. If we have a rural broadband, I think it opens up opportunities for small home-based companies and also small industry of whatever type, home-based businesses as well, I mentioned, to work in the rural area and not have to go in. A few years ago, we completed a bridge at Purdy Creek in Mason County over the Skokomish River. Well, all of a sudden you had more people that wanted to live at Lake Cushman full-time because they could get to work. Some people are in the airline industry, for example, and they have to be at the airport at 5 a.m. on Thursday. And with the river flooding, they couldn't do that. They couldn't be sure they could get there. But that new bridge gives them the opportunity. The industrial areas, the Port of Sheldon here, the Port of Bremerton, the improvements have been substantial over the years. Rail improvements, industrial areas that have been opened up, the water and sewer, fire protection, all those projects I've worked on very, very hard to make sure that we've got a place for small business and in industry here in 35th District. But it's tough. We'll always be a little bit behind because of the rural nature. If you look at Lewis County, very rural county, 9 incorporated cities. Grace Harbor, you think of that as very rural, 9 incorporated cities. You look at Mason County, only 1 incorporated city. And then, you know, Mason has 44% of the district, Kitsap's 28, and Thurston is 28. So we need that kind of industrial base that we've lost over the years at in the 35th.
What would attract more industry to the 35th, do you think? Why aren't more companies setting up
Well,
manufacturing?
I think a trained workforce is a big issue. I think, as I mentioned, that broadband
Is OC
access.
capable of doing that right now?
Capable of
Training the workforce that's needed?
Well, I think so. I think our community colleges do a wonderful job. The Olympic College in Shelton, the expansion that we've had here as well, into the medical fields, the nurses training, for example. The hospitals have improved and have expanded here in our district and close by. I think that's great opportunities. There's industrial opportunities as well. I think in the schools we have to stress more, you know, the fact that not every kid is going to go to a 4-year institution. There's a lot of opportunities in the trades. You mentioned the shipyard here. I have some friends whose sons and daughters work in the shipyard, and the benefits are great. The working conditions are good. The future is good for them. But you got to have a clean record. You can't be, you know, a record of drugs. You've got to be complete high school for sure. You've got to have some skills and be able to learn. So I think we're improving. I think my opponent says, "Oh, we're just going backwards." I don't see that at all. I think that our area is improving. It's not saturated with growth like some areas, but I don't know that would be a good thing for us. I don't know that we can handle that. We have to have affordable housing. Those are things I think we can achieve.
You talked about achieving the property tax levy swap,
Yeah.
getting the money into the education to satisfy the Cleary decision. One, are you, I mean, I'm assuming you're proud of how that all came together, that we've met some of this, but what's the next step? What needs to be done now to ensure we have the opportunities in education and ensure it's sustainable to pay for it and pay for what it needs to be?
Right. Well, I think this is you know, it was unusual, but to bring everybody together, and Republicans and Democrats, I voted for them for the last bill, the funding bill. What we did is of course, we increased the property tax, the state property tax, by 81 cents a thousand, and we capped the local levies at $1.50 per thousand, or $2,500 per student until 2019, or starting in 2019. So what we had 1 year where we had these overlapping tax rates. So this year is a bad year. The next year, I think, will be very good for our areas. Our state will pick up the teacher salaries. The salaries are increasing. Starting salary for a teacher now is $40,000, which is a lot better than it was. We're up in the top third for teacher salaries in the country. So I think we've made some real great strides in education. But there's, as you say, there's still a long ways to go. I think we still have to concentrate on early childhood education. I think we need to help our disadvantaged kids more. I think there's some opportunities to do that with more focus, and it's been somewhat contentious. You know, some people may come back in the urban areas, in the Seattle areas, and try to change this, but
they're not going to see the big discount.
They're not going to see the big discount, no. But you start thinking, you know, today there's an article in the Seattle Times about Seattle City Light, and big complaints about rates going up. Well, the average rate for the average residential house in Seattle is $45 a month. That's not too bad. I know what I pay residential. $45 is not too bad. Well, the reason it's $45 is they have such a big population that they can spread the bill. You know, we don't have that opportunity. So that kind of translates to schools. They still have that opportunity. I want to have every zip code, every kid in every zip code in the state should get the best education possible. And it may take some hard work in Olympia next year to hang on to the gains that we've made.
When you say focus on early childhood education, would you like to expand? I mean, kind of that definition of basic does not include preschool, pre-K, those sorts of things. Should it include those?
I think it should. I think the best thing we can do for for families and little kids is to help them with their preschool and you know, first and second grade. Get these kids reading and familiar and learning and familiar with sitting and learning and being active in school, because so many parents don't do such a good job, I think. It's tough that schools are picking up the social programs for what traditionally the families did.
You guys have been pulling money from everywhere to put into this. Where do you look now if you wanted to add some of these things that aren't included right now?
Well, at the end of next biennium, we'll have, the state economist says, we'll have over $2.3 billion more than what we've projected. So I think it'll even be more than that. Our economy is hot. I don't see it slowing down for a few years. That's what the economists are saying. You know, I studied at the Wharton School.
So
I didn't go to Wall Street, but I think our economy is going to keep going.
So as yeah, it looks like you're right. The revenue forecasts are coming. There's another chunk of money coming. You've got education, like you say, you can go straight there.
Yeah.
But there's also Western State Hospital,
right?
Culverts. I mean, there's some other big bills that need to be paid.
Yes.
Is it enough, or do we need to start rethinking about how either you budget or maybe there's a tax reform that needs to happen to make sure all of these things will be covered?
Well, I think it's all about how we budget. I mean, our revenues are exceptional. You know, we separate our transportation dollars from our general fund dollars. I think there's great opportunities to prioritize better. When the Majority Coalition Caucus was in charge there for 5 years, I think we did a better job of prioritizing how we were going to spend our money. When you mentioned the culvert case, that is something I think that the State Attorney General should have negotiated a settlement. I think it would have been a lot cheaper, but that he didn't do that. They lost the case in the U.S. Supreme Court, so now we're going to have to come up with billions of dollars to fix those culverts and help with salmon passage. I think what we can do, though, in the legislature is try to direct that money out here. This is where the habitat is. This is where we can really do some good. I bet you if you wanted to put a culvert under I-5 today, it would cost you $50 million. $50 million would do a tremendous amount for salmon restoration and good habitat here in Kitsap and Mason counties. So I'm going to try to make sure that we prioritize how those projects are done, and we can do that in the state budget.
What about the gas tax? You know, we have one of the highest gas taxes in the nation. Like you see, I mean, you sit there looking at the list of transportation things that need to be done. Is this a sound way to fund those road projects, or should we look at the other things, this vehicle mile travel idea, toll roads, anything like that? Right.
I think the gas tax is very effective. I mean, it's high, but you pay it if you drive. If you don't drive, you don't pay it. It is also very cheap to collect. If we have a gas tax around 50 cents a gallon, it's like 49.5, I think. So it costs 1/2 of 1 cent to collect that tax. That's pretty darn cheap because we collect it at the rack. I mean, basically at the wholesale level. So the other side of the other thing that the feds want, and Oregon is looking at a pilot program, and we also have a big focus group going on, is this vehicle miles traveled. I think people will really reject this idea, especially in our area where we drive larger vehicles, we drive more distances to work, and also I think people don't want their privacy compromised. There's a couple different ways that they're testing right now to how to collect the dollars. Some of them would really put a GPS unit in your vehicle. They'll know where your car is at every minute, and how much are you spending? Are you going over the speed limit? Did you violate traffic laws? I mean, there's possibilities here, and it scares people. So the gas tax, although it's high, I think it's a fair way to collect. Now, as we go to more electric cars, we're going to collect. Is it going to be enough? Yeah. But I don't think we're going to go to those electric cars as fast as some people think. Still, the technology isn't great. The distance you can travel is pretty short. You can't have a very heavy vehicle, obviously. So it's going to take a while for us to get to electrification in a much bigger scale. You see it in California. You see when the price subsidies came off, the sales dropped very quickly.
What about tolling?
Well, tolling I think is fine when people see it for a new project. But when tolling comes on to a road that's already built, that really upsets people. And I think that's a mistake. You've got to listen to what people are saying. The toll that went on the new Tacoma Narrows Bridge, they saw a new bridge, they saw a reduction in congestion. I think they're able and willing to pay that. But to put a toll on, well, you see what's happening on 405 and some of these other highways in the Puget Sound corridor. It's become very controversial to toll those roads, and I don't think we should do that. Last thing on tolling, I was a supporter of the tunnel in Seattle. I think the tunnel is a wonderful way to improve the waterfront in Seattle. And that's a cash cow for all of us in the state. When the cruise ships tie up there, when the activity, when the new park is done along the waterfront, I think it'll be a world-class waterfront and attract visitors from all over the country. And that helps us here, too. We're able to enjoy the little bit more rural lifestyle, but able to take the ferry and enjoy those things that will be happening in the urban area.
So can I, is it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
This is a little off the subject, but
Yeah.
my curiosity is there. How do you vote on the Public Records Act?
I voted against it. And the reason is because I get a lot of constituents that come in with things that they would not want to share. I get mothers that have domestic violence issues. I've got people that come in with diseases. I've got people that come in with a lot of issues that I don't think they would come in if they knew that their correspondence to me or those things would be public.
Then you would have voted for the exempting the legislature.
Yes, I did vote to continue.
That's my question.
Yeah.
How different is your constituent correspondence as a state legislator than when you were a county commissioner or one of these other? Seems like people often go to their
Yes.
local government first for help and then
Right,
move
yeah,
up
those
the
things
chain.
were not protected at the county level, but I think it was not quite as intense, not so many personal stories.
So why should there be a difference?
Well, I guess that, you know, the legislature was obviously was wrong on it. The bill was overturned that we passed, but I still, and I guess if I had to do it over again, I would look at it more closely. But when you meet somebody face to face and they have a terrific alcoholism problem or a drug addiction in your office, and then maybe the ex-wife or the ex-husband wants to get a hold of that, what was said in the meeting, and it's very difficult to justify to those people that their conversations are going to be confidential.
So let's say me as a public official, and I've been a public official, okay, that I'm subject to the Public Records Act and any of my stuff can be subpoenaed or even by the Kitsap Sun, whoever else.
Right.
And
I could get it.
you could get it, right? But you as a legislature who are also a public official
Yeah.
should be held to the same scrutiny as
Standard.
me. Same, thank you,
Okay.
standard.
All right. Well, it's a fair difference of opinion.
You know.
I guess just I felt that my constituents came first in that issue, and I wanted to protect them.
Have you experienced a problem with that?
Oh yeah, I've experienced problems. We get people that come in bizarre circumstances too.
But wasn't it addressed originally for sexual harassment by staff? Isn't that what started the?
Oh, I don't know well, I think that's been an issue in Olympia, I think, for years.
So, okay, maybe put this
Yeah.
a different way.
Yeah.
Because it's still an ongoing conversation.
Right.
You're looking out to protect the privacy of your constituents, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. How should we then ensure that the public also knows that you're not getting, emails from the logging industry offering you money? Because that's the other side. We need to have
Yeah.
a check and balance on what you're doing while we pay you to do our PR.
Well, you have public disclosure.
Should we have some level of
Yeah.
insight into your communications?
But do you want to go through all my emails? I mean,
No,
do you
I don't.
just want access to them? Everything that I write? I think that's
Well,
what you
sure,
have.
yeah.
What you have now. I think
Yeah.
that's what you have now.
Well, no, you're exempted from providing all that, right?
Well, not.
No,
The
the
bill was
bill didn't pass.
Right.
Or it was
veto. Bill was
Right, no,
vetoed.
no, I
Yeah.
understand that, but the legislature has been contending for a long time, they do have some protection.
Right.
I guess what I was trying to say
Yeah.
is there a negotiation that you think
Yeah.
would achieve this goal, and what would
Oh,
you
I
be willing
think
to
so.
do?
The lawyers have been working on this. You're going to get our phone records here very soon. Text messages very soon. I think all that will happen. And it will cause some problems, but it will satisfy the public. And what most people think is that anyone that's been elected is not working for them. So maybe it's a good thing. that people get to see everything that we do, and maybe they'll change their opinion that we are hopefully working for them.
Yeah,
So.
but I think, okay, I'll leave it alone, I guess. I'm saying there still does, I actually believe there should be still some safeguards, and that's maybe what I was getting at. We'll let the lawyers talk about that. Something oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, obviously, my question around
Sure.
school violence.
Go ahead.
Mhm.
So, you know, I mean, I don't need to tell you about school violence. So you in your position, what would be your see as a solution in terms of what's been going on and how we should deal with it as a community?
Well, I think we've got to go at it in a couple different ways. I think we really have to work on mental health. And over the last few years, we've done a tremendous amount, I think, to help with mental health at the county level, at the state level. So increased our funding for mental health programs. I think we have to look at security. So some of these, you know, if you really look at it nationwide, I think you see these school shootings happening much more often in the rural area at these open campus type schools. You don't see them as often, and hopefully this doesn't happen tomorrow, in a urban setting. A lot of the older urban schools have, you know, they were on a city block, they had 4 entrances, and security is a lot easier at those schools. I think we need better security, and a whole look at how we're building schools today and how we can improve what we have. I think we have to do a better job of identifying some of the individuals that have caused this mayhem. Primarily, they've been young men and students. And you know, we were all students. You got to kind of look for the guy that primarily it's been males that are doing things that are very odd, and we've got to be more aware of that. And we have school counselors and others, but we've got to do a better job of identifying. We have to have, I think we need more security in the school. That's not that expensive. And
Police departments or independent security?
It could be both.
Armed?
Well, I think that in some cases, yes, that's not a bad thing, if they're well trained. I certainly wouldn't agree that we should arm our teachers. I don't think that people signed up to be a security guard or a police officer. But I think we need to do a better job of training everybody at the school to recognize when a problem, what problems are before they start, do a better job on security, physical security, and a much better job at mental health.
Are there any gun regulation policies that you think would help address this problem?
I don't. You know, you could see people bring a variety of weapons into schools. People do crazy things. I'm concerned. You know, we have we have the highest proportion of veterans here in Mason, in the 35th district. We have a lot of people that are very concerned about Second Amendment issues. So I think we've done a pretty good job to, in the last few years, with domestic violence issues and change some of our laws, but we haven't gone to the
You're comfortable with the legislation that has been
Yes.
done? Yeah. The other component of mental health in general, if we're talking about it, and its connection to drug abuse, homelessness, what do you think the state's responsibility is? You know, there's local programs going in both Mason County and Kitsap County. Are those the kind of model, do you think it works? Should the state be more involved in that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think the state can be more involved in funding. For example, last session I got $6 million in the capital budget for 2 tiny home projects, one in Kitsap at Retzel and one in Mason County at Sheldon. They're for veterans, and they're modeled after the Quixote Village that is in Tumwater. A friend of mine runs that, Sean McGrady, very interesting guy. And I visited, they had 30 individuals at this tiny homes project. They all are in some type of program. Drugs, obviously, and alcohol are not allowed. They kind of big brother and big sister each other, share rides, do things together, support each other. And we think that a tiny homes project made up of veterans would have that same kind of camaraderie and help for each other, just like it was when they were in the service. And hopefully we'll have those built very soon.
Question about that.
Mhm.
Certainly we want, to support the veterans, well, most,
Yeah.
all of them, but veterans for sure. So where does the VA fit in all that? If
Yeah.
you're talking about, state funding, where's
Right.
is there some collaboration with the VA?
Yes, and the tiny homes project that's going to build it at Retzel is on the grounds of the state veterans home.
Okay.
So it's going to be a very close connection with the feds.
How many homes does $6 million build? I mean, I know there's some
Yeah,
cost, but
it will be built to 60.
60, and that's between.
And that's between 30 at each facility, $3 million for each, and it'll build the infrastructure, the water, the sewer, all that.
So they're permanent, they could remain there.
They'll remain there. In Tumwater, there's a young lady that just left. She graduated from she was taking courses at Evergreen. There's people that have been there longer, but
Is there a deadline on how long they can stay?
no.
No.
They pay. Most of them are on SSI, so there's a proportion of their income that comes for the rent, basically. The facility, they're about 200 square feet, bed, toilet, area to write, sit up, have a TV. Then they have a laundry facility and a common area if they want to eat, for eating, and for laundry. And one of the things I learned when I was there is some of these people that are homeless, they have no ability to reunite with their family. How can you, you can't have your kids meet you on the corner of whatever on Halloween. So I was there on Halloween, or just the day after Halloween, and they just had a big Halloween party. And kids came that, dad or mom had been homeless and now had a spot where they could have a party and get together and do things.
Is the $6 million, is the pilot project, I imagine, is that something that'll be pursued for other communities?
I think so.
In the next session?
I think it'll get national attention, yeah.
Why are we going the tiny home route instead of multi-unit housing?
Well, I think we've got to do both. I think we've got to do both.
Wouldn't it be less expensive to build a multi-unit complex than tiny homes?
No. I think it's much cheaper this way. And it also brings people better together in this group setting for treatment as well. But we've got to do both. But it's very expensive to build anything today that's apartment style. We've worked real hard on low-income incentives for developers, though, and I wish more developers took advantage of those incentives because they're out there.
Why don't they?
Well, I think they'd rather make more money. They're not going to make as much money with a subsidized.
The tax incentives are not enough.
Yeah.
The other facet of this problem is opiate addiction.
Yes.
It's a big thing. Do you support methadone treatment as an option that they should be used more widely?
Yeah, at the county level, I was involved quite a bit with that. In Shelton, actually, it's the methadone bus. You see the individuals on that in the morning. They have to go to Olympia. So it's better to have that treatment there.
Closer. It's better in Olympia?
It's better at home. Better at home. And when I was with the county, we bought a building, the old PUD building, will be a mental health facility. It'll be a treatment facility. It's expensive, but it'll be well done, and there's obviously a great need out there. So we're starting to spend money on those issues, and we're getting some dollars from the state. And then again, I think my experience as a county commissioner helps a lot to convince the legislators that they need to do more for the counties because they are subdivisions of the state. I mean, they have the court system, they have the health, Department of Health that the state is not doing, and all those issues that we do here at the county locally. But there seems to be not too many legislators that have been county commissioners anymore. Used to have more.
Yeah, that was rare.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, guys? Well, we covered the issues I wanted to talk about. Anything that we missed that you'd like to bring up?
Well, I think just a couple things on politics. I think, you know, nobody's really talked about this, but we're approaching redistricting again. I've been through, you know, when I first started, the 35th district went all the way to Cosmopolis. Cosmopolis and Bremerton didn't have a whole lot in common, but anyway, two great towns. But then the district was made a little more compact and added more into Thurston County, took away some in Kitsap County. So now when we get the, as I mentioned, 700,000 more people, 66% of those are in King, Pierce, and Snohomish County. So what it's going to do is draw the population, the districts even tighter around Seattle. So that'll be different for us. I think our district will have big changes in 2 years.
Do you think our state has the right process for doing that?
For redistricting,
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're a model, really, because we don't do it in the legislature,
Right.
like Texas or some of these other,
Right.
and that goes to the U.S. Supreme Court with the big battles and all. But you know, with 4 people selected on the commission, 1 from each of the legislative caucuses, so you've got 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. It takes 3 votes
Right.
to do it. And then if they can't agree, it goes to the state Supreme Court. So it's been very successful, and I think hopefully copied by other states.
One complaint I've heard about it is that it's not really transparent enough.
Mm-hmm.
That they have a lot of closed-door meetings.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. I don't know. I'm not as familiar with as they should be, probably. I've been to some of the meetings, the open meetings, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is a lot of negotiations going on.
Yeah, right, in the back,
Yeah.
back door, the back room meetings before they get to the open meetings.
Right. Well, redistricting is very important. When you look at it at the federal level, there are very few seats in Congress that are competitive anymore.
Right.
You know, in the South, maybe some of the inner cities have all been dominated by the minorities, and then outside it's another group. So it's tough to make it competitive, and I think that's a shame because all that money is focused on a couple races, and that makes a difference. Obviously, you know, here in Washington we don't get a visit from any of the candidates. Maybe we will with moving the primary to a little bit later, better date.
So do you predict the 35th to get a little bigger? Is that why you brought that up?
I think it'll change. I think there's a possibility that we might have a district that is similar to would be the 34th district that has Vashon Island and West Seattle. We might have a district here in Kitsap that goes across the water.
Oh,
Yeah.
Into Jefferson? Or
No,
into
into King County.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of similarities. You know, there's a lot of people that work in King County.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I don't think people would like it, but I think just the demographics, those counties that are around, you know, that magnet they're gonna have to draw in
Right.
to get those districts.
How do you, it kind of leads me to a good last question. I was going to say, what do you think the priorities are in your district? But also, rural Shelton is a lot different than Bremerton.
Yes.
And so how have you done that? Identify what my constituents are saying, because you probably hear
Oh, yeah.
very different perspectives.
I hear
So
different.
how do you rank those, and then what do you think the priority is right now for the 35th?
Oh, I think there's a whole variety of priorities. I mean, there's just not one thing. But education is always going to be a big priority in Bremerton and in Shelton. I think that's a great topic. And we talked about economic development. I think this homeless issue is a big issue in Shelton as well as here. You know, there's a lot of people that are just hanging on. I think property values and affordable housing is going to be an issue everywhere. It's hard to find a place to rent, and you're talking big money now. So I think those are issues we really gotta struggle with, and we can do it. No matter who wins these elections, it's gonna be very, very close. And I think I'm somebody that has worked together with both parties. You know, I get some pushback from my fellow Democrats, but still, I love them, you know. We all gotta work together.